So I'm just going to take a little bit of time on this initial blab, the very first one that I've done. So it's always learning curves when you're trying a new technology. And it's interesting that the topic that I've actually chosen to talk about today, which is about removing blocks to success, and a part of that's to do with fear of trying new things. And I've had a wonderful experience over the last few days with a gorgeous woman by the name of Cara, who has been showing me how to utilize this new technology of blabbing. And so one of the things that I had to do was work through a little bit of fear myself. Here's something new to try in my business, never done it before. Technology is not always the easiest thing for me. And so actually working out how to take the plunge and get involved in this new social media platform was a bit of an interesting experience. So a definite shout out to Cara from Right to Right, who's also joined me here, which is lovely to see. She's definitely your go-to woman when it comes to harnessing social media, be it some of the old platforms or some of the new ones as well. So just starting off with this concept and the things that we're going to be talking about, or what I'm going to be sharing with you today, is some of the ideas of looking at the blocks, the mindset blocks that get in our way when we're looking to create what I call a next chapter business. So before I do that, I just want to give you a little bit of background, because you might be wondering, who the heck is this woman? Who is this person who's blabbing at me? Well, my name is Angela Raspis. I've been in business since 2003 and have had a rather interesting journey throughout those years of being an entrepreneur. I'm actually blabbing here from home, and this is where I have a home office, but I started in the corporate world, as so many of us do. And when my children came along, I realized that going back into that corporate environment and having to work the 8 to 6 and being on call in the evenings and the weekends, I was in marketing and sponsorships and events in the media. So that's what you had to do. And I recognized that it really wasn't an option or a desirable option for me to go back and continue that type of work-life imbalance, shall we say, once it had the kids. So I do what a lot of women do. I took my corporate skills and I turned them into a business. And I was in marketing, therefore having a marketing consultancy was the logical way to go. So that wee business grew from my home office to the upstairs spare room, where I used to have other mums who were working with me casually. And I went to service offices and then ended up buying an office and having full-time staff in Sydney, in Australia, where it is that I'm located. But what happened over that time is I started to realize that I wasn't happy. I'd created a bit of a noose for myself in terms of the type of business that I had built. Although it used my skills, it no longer had my heart. As I'd grown and changed and had experiences that changed the sort of person that I was, I needed to move in a new direction with my business as well. But that's when the fear kicked in. That's when the blocks started happening for the first time. The idea of, who am I to suddenly, at the ripe old age of, back then I was 42, 43, when I thought that it was time to start something new. And the old inner critic, leapt in big time then and saying, what makes you think that you can create something else? Why aren't you staying with what it is that you're doing now? Why would you take a chance and move things and try something different? And that's when I first started to really realize this voice that could sit in our heads and actually stops us from doing the things that we most want to do. So she'd been in my life before, but specifically when it came to business expansion, this is when she started getting quite fierce. And it took some time for me to actually eventually cut loose, give myself permission to be free and go out there and actually create a new business. Now, since then, I work with women these days who usually are in their 40s and who their kids are getting a bit older, and they've realized that perhaps what they're doing, whether it's their own business or wanting to start a business, it's time for a next chapter. It's time to change. But the most common thing that gets in the way of following your dream is those misbeliefs, that voice of the inner critic that can get in the way and say, hey, who do you think you are? One of the things I've done in the last 12 months is actually surveyed a huge number of women. There's pages and pages of surveys. And one of the key questions that I asked was, what is stopping you from creating the business and the life and the success that you want? And here's the thing, guys, 90% of the answers that I got was me. I'm the one who's standing in the way. And I compiled some of what I call the most common misbeliefs that people have when they're looking at creating this next chapter success for themselves. So I ran a meetup here in my home yesterday, and we had 10 women, and we were talking about this very subject, which is why I'm doing this blab now. Now, the common misbeliefs that were coming up. Hello, Brenda. We have Brenda joining us and grabbing a seat. Hopefully you can hear me. I think she's still calling in. There you are. Hello, gorgeous.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. I had to, first blab and all the rest, I had to stop and restart because of all the feedback. So I'm afraid we're an audience of 2 at the moment, but I'm sure people will catch up with us afterwards.
Yes, don't worry. We've already got somebody on. Hi, Cara. Hey. How are you?
Lovely, Cara is here. So what I was just, and you'd be so up your alley in this subject and talking about this, Brenda. I was just bringing up the survey that I'd done earlier this year to find out, what are the most common misbeliefs that women are holding, when the things that hold us back, the things that stop us from, getting on and achieving the success that we want. And I compiled a bit of a list. And I want to read out a few of these and see if you've got some perhaps to add to it as well. And for the people who are listening or looking at the replay, I reckon they'll probably find some that are common. So the sort of ones that came through is the good old, I'm not good enough, full stop, capital letters. My work is not good enough, such and such a person or a program or a product is so much better than mine. If I haven't made it by now, I never will. I'll never have that level of success. My story's not inspiring for anyone. Why would I share it? I can't stand the thought of anyone disapproving of what I have to share. I can't make good money. You have to work really hard to make money. And so the list went on. What are some common misbeliefs that you've found with the people you're working with?
Oh, those basically cover quite a few of them, Angela. Really and truly, I think that you've really got it nailed down there. And I think that the audience that you surveyed definitely gave you quite a bit of information. And I think those, especially the not good enough one, I think that jumps up for everybody. And being on social media, it seems to come a lot more often because you can see what everybody else is doing. And when you're looking at it, what's happening is you're actually looking at the best side of them, but not always the worst side of them. And that, not a true reflection of what's going on in their lives.
The social media. Oh, hello, Cherie. Thank you for joining us. That whole social media spiral that we can, the downward spiral. I mean, I don't know. Where do you feel it when you're getting that feeling of, this isn't working for me? Does it hit you in the chest? Does it hit you in the stomach? Is there a place that you feel it in your body when you're reading some social media stuff and bang, it hits you?
Absolutely. Stomach, right in my gut. Absolutely. Instant. And it's almost like this instant. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going through menopause at the moment. So every time I do get this, it triggers my menopause as well. And I get this hot flush. Shoosh, right up my neck.
A double whammy.
Double whammy.
I think the point that you made about social media has got some amazing benefits. You and I met through online groups and social media, and you've become what I call a belief buddy, which is something that I'm going to talk about today. We can both share, but it has that opposite side as well, that we all want to project that bright, shiny, what's going on. Look, everything is looking fantastic. And what you're doing in those situations is that we're judging our insides by somebody else's outsides. Yeah. And that never works. And I think the way I've often liked to look at business development over time, and this is what I share with a lot of people in my communities, is that it's not a hierarchy. Like we have this perception that someone's higher or better or doing well compared to us. I actually see it as a continuum, like a long line of women. And there's women ahead of us in the line, absolutely, but that's simply because they started before us. And they will turn around and they will offer help to us who are coming behind them. But equally so, there is always people that started after us, and it's our job to turn around and to help them to come forward. Is that a philosophy that makes sense to you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that, many women say, I'm not, and you mentioned even in the survey, many of the women said, but I'm not an expert. Who will buy my stuff? Do you know what? In your industry right now, where you are in your space, you are the expert. And because you are ahead of so many of the other women who perhaps haven't reached your specific destination yet, you have stuff that they need to know. And by withholding that stuff, you're doing them a disservice. So treat yourself as the expert that you are, even if it is that you're just in the beginning. And as you said, you're right. You can't, you definitely can't measure your beginning to somebody else's middle or end. You are where you are, and you're there for a reason, and you need to enjoy the process as you're busy doing it.
It's definitely, it's an evolution rather than a revolution. So
yes.
I think a big part in terms of building up your self-belief and your confidence is to use self-compassion. You know, I love the saying by Buddha, if your compassion does not include yourself, then it is not complete. And we can be so freaking hard on ourselves and beat ourselves up. And I know I've definitely done this, you know, that the concept of the first time that you do something, by very definition, it's the first time. This is my first blab. I mucked it up. I had to hang up and start again. Now, I could allow the inner critic to really start getting loud. Her name is, and I apologize if anybody knows a Helga, but my inner critic's name is Horrible Helga.
It's my mother, Angela.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to have to change her name. But Helga could have been having a field day at me. You know, oh my God, see, you shouldn't have tried something new. As soon as you did it, you screwed it up. You know, stay in your box. But I believe in making peace with your inner critic, and that is one of the first techniques or tools that I'd recommend for people to become aware of what she is saying, because she recycles stuff. And I believe your inner critic is the voice of your amygdala, you know, that really old part of your brain that wants to keep you safe. It doesn't want you to stretch and move out of your comfort zone, because that's dangerous. And, you know, back in the very old days when we were in the caveman times, it was dangerous to step out, to do something new, to be alone, because you could get eaten. And so I think the remnants of our brain are still there. So my Helga wants to keep me safe. But if I listen to her and believe her, then I'd never try something new. I would continue to stay small. Do you feel that being aware of your inner critic, externalizing her in that way so that you can become conscious when it's her talking on default and recycle rather than your own fear? Are you aware of that type of dialogue going on with you?
Oh, yes, I think so, definitely. I think when the first step in emotional intelligence is becoming self-aware of your own thought process. And when you're aware of the thoughts that you're thinking, you can then define between the two, whether it's a positive or a negative thought. And also you can name it as to whether it really is you speaking to yourself or asking yourself that question. But before we go into that, I just want to say hi to everybody else. Hey, hey, Gertrude. I'm so glad to see your inner Gertrude. Yes, Gertrude. I'm Cherie. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay. And thanks. I've noticed that you were on one of the other blabs as well. Thanks for joining. Anybody else who's on here at the moment, on the left-hand side of the screen, if you want to just go and click Tell a Little Bird, please click that link so we can get some more people onto this blab as well. When you click the link, it tweets out to all your followers and those who are in Angela's age bracket and obviously is building their next chatter, and they're over 40. Well, they're welcome to join. So click that little link there and tell your friends so we can get some more on. And if you have any questions for Angela, she is a master mentor, especially specializing in self-worth. So pop your questions here so she can answer them as well.
You're a sweetheart. Thank you, Brenda. And yes, it's great to hear. We've got a Gertrude as an inner critic that's showing up as well. And perhaps, Cara, if you have a moment to tell us, do you have a name for your inner critic? And Brenda, of course, what's yours?
Oh, mine's Hagar, the horrible.
Hagar and Helga. Sounds like a match made in heaven. And Cherie, we'd love to hear from you as well. If you want to give your inner critic a name, it's a great idea to have that, because then it allows you to identify when these recurring recycling thoughts are coming up. Thanks very much, Gertrude. Or, hey, good to see you, Hagar. I can see why you'd feel that way, but things are different this time. So by recognizing, as we're saying, those patterns that they bring up, then we can have the ability to move around them. We can see the pothole and we can move around it. And that concept overall, when it, just to touch on, as you were saying so kindly before, the next chapter businesses, they are all about usually utilizing your life experience, leveraging what you've experienced so that you can shorten the journey for someone else. And what I've found is that we tend to, and again, this might be an age-related thing, I'm not sure, but we get to the stage where we can't just do work any longer. It needs to be fulfilling. It needs to feel good. It needs to feel as though we've got a it's cool. I know that your inner critic is Gertrude as opposed to your name, Cherie. I got you now. Thank you. So that idea of shortening the journey for somebody else, like you've seen the roadblocks, you've fallen down the potholes, you've skinned your knees, and you can help other people avoid those sort of pitfalls. That's the concept of a next chapter business. So if we come back to this idea of the inner critic, so awareness is the number one tool that you have for moving around these blocks, because she will try, with your very best intention or your very best outcomes in mind, she will try and stop you from trying new things, remind you of when things didn't work so well in the past, remind you when you've made mistakes, put all sorts of fears in there. So having the awareness allows you to walk around them. But I think another key point that we've talked about is finding evidence to the contrary, being able to give her evidence that you actually do have a track record of achieving things that you put your mind to. And that's the good old fabulous file. Have you made one of those up, darling?
Yes, absolutely. And only because special trick and tip from you. And so it's amazing. And often when you're just not feeling that good about yourself, you just go back and just look through all of those amazing things that everybody has said about you. And it makes you feel so much better. And you realize that your inner critic is actually just this small, and that you don't really need to listen to her as much as what you do in any case, because you have choice in the matter.
Absolutely. I'm just topping out of sight for a sec too. This is just, it's not a great example, but this is my fabulous file. And literally it is chockers with feedback, with things that have appeared in the paper, with thank you cards that have turned up. But there's also stuff in here. This is a lot to do with business. So it's to remind me, especially before I'm going to go on a BLAB or host a workshop or have a sales conversation, and I might be feeling a bit wobbly. If I dive into that fabulous file, if I was going to call her Hagar, I'm adopting yours. If Helga's been going off.
You can have her.
I'll take her out. If Helga's been going off a bit and I feel a bit wobbly, because we all get wobbly, to dip into your fabulous file can be a really good way of reaffirming the contribution and the value of what it is that you do. But I also have things in there that are personal, like a card from my daughter that, she wrote way back when, it was a few years ago now, that I'm the best mum in the whole HOLE world. Now, why is that in my business fabulous file? Well, as a mum, sometimes I feel as I don't juggle so well. I'm not doing the best of any role that I've taken on. So I need to remind myself that I'm actually a great mum. I'm a fabulous mum, goddammit. So things like that go in your file. And it doesn't just have to be evidence of, when you've done well in business, especially for women who are starting off. You can transfer evidence. Like we've got a mutual friend, the gorgeous Maria down in Melbourne, who is in training for a marathon at the moment. Now, she's in her early 50s and she's flying to New York in a week to run her 3rd New York Marathon. I think she's incredible. She absolutely inspires me.
Yeah.
She's just awesome. But what we can do there, and Maria and I have talked about that, there is so much evidence of her being able to set a goal and to go to extraordinary lengths to achieve it. So that same energy can be transferred into her business endeavors as well. Is it surprising that during this time, she's actually having more success in her business than she ever has before? I don't think so. I think that she's got in her fabulous file now that beautiful evidence that she can make things happen. She's a conscious creator. And so when you create your fabulous file, for everyone who's listening to this or the replay, please put everything in it that makes you feel great. Anything that makes you feel as though I can tick that, I did a good job, because you can transfer that energy across to move through the blocks when you're Hagar, when you're Helga, when your Gertrude is talking to you. Very wise nodding there.
It is. I'm letting it sink in. I'm thinking, yeah, that's right. That's true. Angela, I want to know one thing from you. So, let's put you in the hot seat for a little while, okay? Obviously, you have been working on your mindset for the past few months now. How did you know and how did you discover that your Helga was tripping you up? And what was the first step you did so that you could start managing that little inner voice?
Well, and thank you for asking, because I've been on one heck of a trip. The first thing was the consciousness, the awareness, the recognition that I think there's almost there's a Jung perspective that talks about the collective consciousness, and looking at the similarities in the misbeliefs, I recognize that we all have them. So it's not unique to me. So this is part of the collective consciousness of women who are stepping up and wanting to create and give back and contribute and make a business out of that. So once I recognize that it's not all about me, it's actually a commonality, then that made me realize that the women who, in my eyes, are creating what it is that they want to create, they must have moved through these blocks themselves. So the first thing was recognition, awareness, and hope. Well, there's a possibility that I can move through these as well. The second thing was I've actually got a series of questions that I need to look at to see if it is what I call a misbelief. Is this misbelief getting in the way? So, and I'd encourage everyone, we have a next chapter Facebook group, which I'll put up here in a moment, because I'm going to put a copy of these questions in that group so you can scribble them down, but also go and get a copy. So these are the questions that I would ask myself to help me move through the blocks. So the first thing is, what is the belief? What is the thing I'm thinking? I.e., it's really hard to make money in business. I grew up on a farm in New Zealand. And my dad's a shearer and a fencer. So I've had ample evidence that you've got to work your butt off to actually make money. So there was the belief I held. It's really hard to make money. How does that make me feel is the next question that I would ask myself. Well, it makes me feel flat, and it makes me feel uninspired and unmotivated. So I need to attach the feelings to it. So I'm recognizing what it's doing to me. Then I ask the question, does that belief serve me? Is that belief helpful? Is it going to help me create what I want? Well, hell no. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to create the case for the motivation to remove this belief. So the next question I'd ask is, what's the cost of this misbelief? How's it held me back? Well, by thinking that it's really hard to make money, not surprisingly, I had to work really hard. And I was doing just one-on-one work, and I was absolutely living out this belief that, every penny to bring into my business felt like I was really having to pull my teeth to do it. So the next question I ask, is there any reason at all that makes it a good idea to continue to hold on to this belief? And I couldn't find any. Sometimes the belief can be good, there's like a payoff, I think, and you and I have spoken about this. There sometimes can be that payoff of by not putting myself out there, I don't take a risk. It keeps me safe. I feel comfortable. So that could be a payoff, but I could not see any reason for this particular belief to deserve to stay in my life. Then the last question, the very important one, what might be possible if you chose to let go of this belief? And that's when you start what I call skylight thinking of wow, well, just maybe I could do this, this, and this. So once I've actually identified that there's beliefs that I want to get rid of, then I create the new belief. I use EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping, which has been, a godsend for me. I went and did practitioner training and that helped. So that was one of the very key things, the identification, the recognizing the cost of this misbelief and giving myself the motivation to change it. Then using a specific modality was helpful, but there's been other things as well. Another key one past that is having a circle of support. Because a lot of us...
So important.
It's hugely important. So many of us are working in isolation. So it's it's me. I'm going to go have, lunch with the birds outside. I'm working by myself. So really important to reach out and connect. And there's, having that circle of people who are on a similar journey as you. I've got some gorgeous friends who don't have businesses. So they think I'm a little bit nutty. They think that I never stop working. I love what I do, so I'm often talking about it. But so I believe belief buddies are an absolute vital part of this moving through misbeliefs. You're a belief buddy of mine. So a belief buddy, by definition, guys, is someone that holds your vision in their heart. They know what you're trying to achieve. They know that it's not always roses and, and unicorns and fairy dust. So when you're having wobbly days, when you're feeling crappy, then you can reach out to your belief buddy and they can do exactly the same for you. So those are two really key things that have helped me. Very long answer to a short question.
I know, so interesting. I could sit and listen to this all day long because, it's just absolutely love personal development in any case, and anything to do with the mindset is just something that just tickles my fancy, as they say.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
but it's really good. And I think that, when we're able to identify exactly what it is that trips us up, we can then go out and find the ways to be able to better it as well and make things and change the way. And those questions that you've just read, that's the first start of it. I mean, if we can answer those questions and work through those questions, then we find ourselves walking towards the light. And it's not the train that's coming at the end of the tunnel. It's actually the light that's at the end of the tunnel, because we're able to see where it is that we need to go now. And that's amazing. So really, really good.
That whole idea that you're saying there about the light at the end of the tunnel, and let's take that concept for a moment and put it up as the concept of your vision. I think it's incredibly important. Hello, we have a new person who's come to play. Hey there, thank you for joining us. So the concept of having a really strong vision. Now, and that's the vision for your business, and it needs to be very much based on what's important to you. I think it's dangerous sometimes that we can adopt the vision that we think we should have, the classic, we were talking about social media sometimes tripping us up before, click here and make 6 figures in the next 6 seconds type thing, just follow my blueprint. Well, the reality is that a next chapter business in particular needs to come from your heart. I want people to create a vision that pulls them forward, that inspires them, rather than something that they feel motivated and that they need to push themselves with. So if you have that vision that pulls you forward, that also helps you do what I call get off self. So this isn't about me, getting on this blab has got nothing to do with let's help Angela out today. It's all about my whole purpose, as you touched on before, is to have every person increase their self-worth and their self-belief, because when you have that intact, anything is possible. So that vision inspires and pulls me forward and allows me to say, Helga, thank you for your concern, but I'm doing this anyway.
That's so true. One thing I did want to know is that for the people just jumping onto the call right now as well, do you want to just elaborate a little bit about what is your next chapter business? We've heard you speaking about it quite often, and we know you have a Facebook group called Your Next Chapter. This is obviously something that's very important to you. What does Your Next Chapter mean, and how did you come about that name?
It's a long and checkered story, but in essence, to give you the short and to the heart version, what I found in myself, and this is actually the essence of the next chapter. It's what happens inside. So I realized that the business that I had created, although on the outside was working really well, it no longer ticked the boxes for me. My business was a marketing agency. It was all about strategy. But as I got older and wiser, I couldn't just do that sort of work anymore. So a next chapter depends on the individual. But what it means, it's a change. It's a step into a new direction. It's a calling almost that often sits in the back of your head, and you try and ignore it. You try and go, no, I'm too busy for that, or I don't want to try that, or that's a bit scary, or it's not important, or whatever it is. But it stays there. And the desire starts to build, and you need to give yourself permission to explore it and jump into it. So, some examples, I've had accountants that have turned into kinesiologists. I've had people like me that were a high-level marketing consultant actually bring in spirituality and all different sorts of concepts into a next chapter business. So in essence, it is that you're looking at your past experience and you're recognizing that what you've learned can be utilized to help others. And then it's time for you to step into that area of contribution. And it doesn't matter what the business is. You and I are business mentors. So we help women, create the businesses that they really want. Mm-hmm. But personal development and business development are so entwined. And so a great number of women who are stepping into their next chapters say to me, I need fulfillment. I can't do the sort of things that I used to do. I need to make a difference. I need to make a contribution. I need to feel great at the end of the day. So what is that for you? It's following your joy. It's really getting clear on those aspects before you even worry about monetizing it. You have to start with that place of contribution and fulfillment, and then it comes from there.
That is so true. Yeah, and I think most of us who are online these days, we do what we do. We become coaches and mentors and things like that because we have a love for wanting to help other people. We've moved from almost the success, the wanting to achieve success now to wanting to be, add value, to contribute, to help others to realize their dreams as well. And that's just so important. I just love it. And I think that the next chapter, your next chapter, is so fitting. I know I'm part of that next chapter as well. I think I have reinvented myself probably 100 times. I don't know, probably will still a few times. And that's what the next chapter is about. It's about you finding that spot, that space that really brings about that fulfillment and that joy, whether it be in life or whether it be in business. And I think we find it when we're closer to a certain age.
There was the late, great Wayne Dyer. He was actually the catalyst for me. I watched a movie called The Shift, and he talked about the shift from ambition to meaning. And that was basically it for me. For me, I call it your next chapter. And so, as I said, it looks different for every person. But the only thing that can really stop us from stepping into a next chapter is that not giving yourself permission, allowing those thoughts, those blocks that can come in to actually prevent you from taking that action. So that's why that self-awareness is so darn important. And the vision that you create for yourself goes a long way towards helping you get off self and go, this thing that I'm creating is more than me. There are people that I'm out there to help. You remember we've talked before, and I'd love to share this with everyone. And some new ladies have joined us. Hello and welcome. And any questions that you have?
Hey, Chick Flicks, and Lady Motivator. That's an awesome name. Wow.
It is. We've been talking, guys, about our inner critics as being a big part of the block that holds us back. And we've decided to give our inner critics names because externalizing them really helps us to identify that it's their voice that is giving us the negativities often to keep us safe. So introducing, mine is Helga, and Brenda's is Hagar. And we've also found out Cherie, who's on here as well. She has Gertrude. So we've got some really old-fashioned names for our inner critics.
Because they come out of the 20th or the 18th century.
And they look very fierce and very stern and tell us what we can't do as opposed to what we can do. So absolutely. But that idea of having your vision, I think one of the things that also can trip us up is two things. One is the comparison trap. And the other one is almost like the perfectionism trap for us wanting to get it absolutely right before we can take action. And that perfectionism stops us from taking the action that can take us closer to achieving that vision. The idea is baby steps. It's an evolution. It's not a revolution. And so, perfection doesn't exist. I don't know about you, but I don't know a single perfect person. I've never seen a single perfect program that I've enrolled in. I've seen some great ones, but nothing's perfect. By very nature, the first time you do something allows you to get feedback and to then improve it. So we have to be aware of perfectionism and just steel ourselves to take action anyway.
I just love that. And, just to add on to that perfectionism thing, I have a friend who always says progress before perfection, which is so true, because if you're constantly trying to perfect something, you're never going to put out what you need to put out into the world. The fact is that perfection is the enemy of good. And I would just suggest, just get it out there, because once you've got it out there, you can tweak it and change it. Your clientele, the people who are your audience, the people who love you will provide you with enough feedback so you can keep on changing it. Whereas if you created it up front and you're trying to get it perfect all the time, it can take forever. And there's a possibility that eventually you're going to talk yourself out of putting your dream out there. People need you. People need to see your stuff. You're there to be a life changer. And if you don't put it out there, you can change nobody's life.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. And that idea of the perfectionism leads into an example that I'd love to use. And it's the idea that we often feel as women, I love men. I'm married to one. I got 3 sons, and a daughter. So this is not man bashing at all. It's just the fact that we tend to be, as a general rule, a bit more sensitive, a bit more concerned about what people think. And that is one of the greatest blocks to us taking action. And this feeling that we must have approval from everyone. Well, how that can play out in your business is that you try and be all things to all people. Like, everyone's a potential client. I can help everyone. Well, yeah, you probably can. But You probably shouldn't. And here's the reason why. I want everyone to imagine that they have, you're in Times Square, okay? A huge big billboard. Now, your message, the thing that you really want to put out in the world, the thing that you really believe, the transformation that you know that you can help other people achieve, that outcome. Your big message is up there. Now, I want you to imagine that the world is divided up into thirds. Okay, the first third are going to come along and look at your billboard, and they are actively going to say, that's rubbish. I disagree. That is crap. Now, that can hurt, like let that land for a moment. But here's the thing. Respond with love. Let them go. There's another billboard around the corner. That's for them. Then the next third of the world is going to turn up and they're going to look at your billboard and they're going to go, meh. You know, it's okay. It doesn't particularly, push any buttons with me. And they're going to move on. And that's fine because there's another billboard for them around the corner. But then the next third is going to turn up and they're going to look at your message and they're going to go, hell yeah, where have you been? Oh, yeah. That's exactly how I feel. Now, that to me is the concept of your most aligned clients, because the ones that respond to the way that you turn up in the world are going to be the ones that are ready for the transformation that only you can provide. And I really want to stress to everybody is that what I'm saying here is not new. I mean, it's basic marketing as well as basic building blocks for a business. But there's a difference between knowing something and letting that travel down to your heart and actually doing something with it. And so letting go of that need to have everybody approve of you. The narrower you get, the more open you become with your message and your story. People can feel your empathy and they can, I don't want to be preached at from a mountaintop. I want to know that the person that I'm working with has been down in the trenches. So sharing that story unblocks so much, recognizing that you don't have to solve everyone's problems, that there are most aligned clients who are waiting for you. That can remove so many blocks to you taking action in your business if you can take that really on board in your heart.
That's true. And you mentioned your story, Angela. Now that's fascinating because obviously we're on social media and social media is social media, and so stories and messages and news can spread like wildfire. How do you draw the line between sharing your story and too much of your story?
Now, one of my favorite people in the whole world, apart from yourself, of course, is Brenda Brown. And she talks about, sharing your story with those who deserve to hear it. So this is a personal thing. Like, I'm pretty open about the challenges that I've gone through. They're on my website, they're on my About page, and I'm very open with that because I have processed that. I'm not in the absolute midst of, what was happening to me 9 years ago. So I feel sufficiently removed from it. I've had enough empathy in my life to be able to share that story without it bringing stuff up for me. But so that's, to me, is the first point. When you've moved through something, when you've processed something, then it feels safer to share. But the second point of things happen on a daily basis. And so deciding what it is that you're going to share on sort of like on a weekly, on a daily basis, the things that are happening in your life. That's where I think it's important to look for, is there a lesson within this that could be of benefit to others? That to me is the litmus test. Like I've expressed in the last 2 weeks, I had a problem with a trademark issue. And I had no idea, because I used to call my business, as you know, Your Second Act. And now we've moved into Your Next Chapter. Well, that wasn't because I woke up one morning with a revelation. That was because someone actually came to me and said, you can't use that. I've got it trademarked. And I had no idea. So it was a very painful experience, but a very big learning curve. So that was a story that was very appropriate to share. I shared it very openly as to how I felt, what I used to actually get through it, which is feel, deal, heal. As in, I didn't try and push back how angry and disappointed and all the emotions. I had to go through them all. And then in the midst of the emotional side of the story was also the practical side, which was to let people know, before you start using something, having a business name and a URL is not enough. You've got to check the trademark. So sharing stories that are going to be of service to the women or the men that you are here to serve is a great idea. Bye, Cherie. Thank you for joining us. Just popping off. So that, in terms of knowing what stories to share, well, it starts with what change do you want to affect in the world, in your part of the world. Mine starts with self-worth. I've got a heck of a lot of business experience and I teach my clients so much, but without that strong foundation and self-belief and self-worth, working out what are the blocks and how to let them go. There's no point teaching anyone the business stuff until they've got that, in place. So that's a story that I always start with. Does that help?
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. I just love hearing you speak because you're so knowledgeable about your subject in any case, and I can hear the passion that you have for helping the people that are in your group and just to achieve their next level, to be able to take their business to the next level as well. Well, not even their business, but their life. So that is just amazing. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you, darling. But it is and this is the key, isn't it? Because when this is the fulfillment. This is the next chapter piece. If I go back to when I had my marketing agency, and I'm sure other people can relate to this with former businesses or incarnations of their business. Now, if I went into some of those more strategic clients and sat down and said, okay, so before we actually start this, we're going to get intentional. We're going to connect to our higher power so that we really feel supported. And we're going to do this and this. They would have laughed me out of the room. They're no longer my most aligned clients. I want to bring the whole of me into my business. I don't want to go, okay, I'm in business mode. I'll put on my business hat. And now I'm in mum mode. I'll put on my mum hat. I want that seamless me all through the business. That stops blocks as well, because you don't confuse yourself. You just turn up completely as you. And when you own the value of what you have to share, then you can flow so much more easily. And that's all about that key tool for anyone who's just joined us of get off self. When you are focusing on the end result, the outcome that you want to provide, then that's when you can easily move through the blocks, because it's not about you, it's about serving them.
Yeah, that is so true. Absolutely love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, let me think of anything else that I wanted to share on this particular topic.
Well, let's hear from our audience and find out if they have a question for you. Does anybody in the audience?
And I think I was just Cara showed me that we do the /Q and then type in your question. Apparently that highlights it in blue. So I'd love to see one of those.
Well, there we go. We've got Shakia saying that, loving that, Angela. Yes, I know Angela is the bomb, definitely. There we go. Question, here it is. She's just popped it up. So you've just seen it, Angela.
So that's how it looks. Fantastic. So
isn't it
I'm
awesome?
a constant learner. I'm a constant learner. That's good. That's great.
Glad it's great.
A nice spot just to draw this to a close would be another recommendation that I'd have. There's a concept that I use called the bookends of your day. And this is about really being grounded, owning your value, and connecting to a source other than yourself to help you on your vision, on your path. So the bookends of the day are the way you start your day and the way you end your day. So on an ideal day when everyone's behaving in my household, that looks like some visualization, a short meditation or visualization meditation, and then some time journaling, doing some freehand journaling. That was inspired from The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron. She talks about getting it out of your head. And so often, when we're fearful about things, when we're concerned about things, we're not quite sure how things are going to turn out, journaling really helps. I've been keeping journals for years, and when I look back, I discover, just like Helga, your inner critic recycles the things that she says to try and hold you back and keep you safe. You'll see similar patterns come up in your journaling as well. There's often the same sort of fears keep coming back and back. I've just last night, I was actually going through my journal from this year. And, started off the year on an absolute high. A week later, I was crap again. Then was up and positive again, and then I was down again. So recognizing that this will pass, feeling the fear, but taking action anyway is a big thing. So that bookend of the day, starting with the journaling and the meditation, is great. And then at the end of the day, I use gratitude. I keep gratitude journals for the things that I am grateful for that have happened, and what that's done in terms of helping remove the blocks to success. It helps my brain filter for the positive. So I actually find more good stuff in my life than I used to before I kept a gratitude journal. So it might seem a little bit esoteric, like what's gratitude got to do with removing the blocks in your business? Well, you train your brain. And because what if you actually approached your business? Yeah, lots of people are talking about gratitude journals because they're so great. They really do make a difference. So
they're
usually
so awesome.
recommend.
I mean, they just open you up so much, and it's so fantastic just to have one and to look back at it as well.
Oh, I like that too.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
Because and with my kids, that's such a great thing to do. And I ask them the same thing. I ask them to give me some, tell me the best thing about your day. Because otherwise, I ask them, how's your day? And I get from my son, who's 16, good. And that's it. It makes my question a bit deeper. Good. Covers everything from utter delight to complete despair.
Exactly.
It's a lot. I guess at least they're still talking to us at 16 because he spends a lot of time behind a closed door. But that's how those bookends of your day can set you up for success, because they do. I'm not being Pollyanna here, but you do have a choice. The glass is half empty. Suddenly gone bright. The glass is half empty or half full, but there's always room for more. But I was actually walking the other day, and it came to me, this concept of what if. And it's really simple. It was like, what if we approached everything in our business and in our life with an expectation of success?
Yes.
What if we owned our value and we really understood that we can make a difference for another person? So what if, instead of looking for the what could go wrong and what am I scared of, we acknowledge that, but then we say, but what if it went right? What if this was a raving success? Because your feelings, your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings create your actions. So if you're feeling positive and hopeful, and you've checked into your fabulous file and you've got that evidence of what it is that you can do, what if you then actually took that forward and had that feeling and then took that inspired action? It would make such a difference. So my mantra at the moment is, what if it works?
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that little image that floats around Facebook quite often. It's a little image and it says, oh, but what if I fail? And it says, oh, my darling, but what if you fly?
Yeah.
And, and I think we are conditioned as human beings, because I think it's our fight and flight instinct from the caveman days, where we look for the risk, the adverse, the things that don't work well for us, because that's kept us safe for such a long time. But now we can start. The world has changed so much. There's less risk really, and the world is opening so much to us. And we can look at things like, what if it does happen? What if we are able to just get over ourselves and stop resisting who we're meant to be? What if we are able to speak our truth, and that truth is a stepping stone for somebody else so that it changes their lives? And we come from that frame of mind, from that reference, our level of certainty goes up as well. And when we are certain about ourselves and who we are, we exude that to the world, and people feel it, and people change as a result of that as well. It's that ripple effect. Constantly.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I love that what if concept. It's beautiful.
And just touching on something else that you said there, the certainty is so client attractive. If we're talking in pure business sense, people are looking for a guide. They're looking for someone to lead them. They're looking for someone to solve the problem for them. A silly example, but I think it illustrates the point well. Last weekend, I was going to my sister's partner's birthday barbecue. I don't know him very well. I just know he likes cooking. I don't cook very much, but I went into a kitchen shop down at my local shopping centre, and I walked in and said to the woman, I need a gift for this situation, and this is the guy, this is what he's into. And she looked at me and said, I have the perfect thing. You are going to love this. He is going to love this. It's awesome. She just exuded and radiated this certainty and this positivity. And that made my life so easy, because I trusted her. I was really happy to be guided by her, made the purchase. He was happy ending to the story. But that concept of that certainty, that was the magnetic part. So with the whole concept of what we're talking about here is the block is a lack of belief in yourself. That is essentially the block. I'm not good enough. There's so much comes back to that core belief. So what if we just entertained, as we've been talking about, that idea that I have value. I can make a difference. And the things that I try, I've got lots of evidence that I succeed. So I'm going to exude that certainty and watch the doors open. That's really the main message that I'd love everybody to take away today, so that they can step into their life and their business with just that little bit more confidence, and the doors open. It amazes me. Certainty is magnetic.
It is, without a doubt. Awesome.
Well, this is, I think, as we've talked about often, we could keep going for months, for years, chatting. There's no doubt. But I think
again one day.
I have to jump back on a plane again, absolutely. But thank you so much, everyone that's joined us here. And I hope that, with any learning experience, I think if you can just take away one or two nuggets, you never know what's going to be a catalyst for your growth. So just focus on one or two things that you can start to put into practice. because you are the bridge between someone's current reality and their new possibility. You are that bridge. And so I really want you to own that. So letting go of the blocks and stepping into that power and that value and that worth that you have, that's what makes all the difference in the next chapter business and life.
It's true. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Loved it. Thank you.
You're so
been
welcome.
A good conversation and always food for thought. Hundreds of little nuggets and little sparks, little neurons that are firing at the moment saying, yes, give me more, give me more.
Well, I'm just going to pop up here on the messages, if I can find my way back, to the group, the Facebook group that we have. It still has, there we go. Okay, it still has on. Can you still hear me, Brenda? I seem to be.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
But if you do go into Facebook and you just type in your next chapter, it does pop up because that's what I searched earlier on today. It comes up as your next chapter.
I changed the name, but of course Facebook does not let you change the URL. And so there's a link there, and if you search, but there's also, I'll put a second link there. That is a free resource on my website. Yourjourneyboard.com is how you can get there directly. This is a free program that takes you through making peace with your past, getting you grounded in the present, and creating a vision and mission statement, a vision and purpose statement for your next chapter business. There's a lot of women who have used this program, and it's really opened the door to new possibilities for them. So I'd love to spread that far and wide so that more people can have that experience. And then we will end off this particular blab and obviously jump back on again and have another conversation about another key topic to enhance next chapter businesses and really help women. Coming again real soon.
Awesome. You take care, Angela.
Thanks
Cheers,
so
guys.
much. Bye,
Thanks
everybody.
so much for joining. Bye.
Okay, bye.